Hey, this is Jennifer from Belladonna's Botanicals, and this is a video that this is gonna be a complicated video, and I'm gonna have some preliminary explanations and some closing explanations as well. These are some messages from Lilith, and they really kind of hop all over the place. So I'm going to kind of go into the preliminary discussion um, of how I got to this point and what I was working on. So the vast majority of spiritual work that I do is a lot of self work, a lot of shadow work, healing, consciousness expansion, and communicating with spirit, whatever however that is, whether it's my guides, whether it's ancestors, whether it's any of the spirits that I work with. My matron is Lilith and my patron deity is Lucifer. So I work with them fairly often. So, but I'm not always doing like spells and rituals and things of that nature. A lot of times I go to them kind of and in ascension mode. And if you're interested in learning more about what ascension mode is in the demonology practice, I do have a video on that. I will try to remember to link it down below. So I commune with spirit a lot of times to broaden my horizons, to understand myself and the universe better, the nature of spirit. And, a lot of times in a recent video, I did what on Lucifer or with Lucifer on, I was having issues with being vulnerable. So I went to Lucifer in a roundabout way and was working on that particular issue and how it impacts my life and how I can grow and heal. And, I kind of came out the other side of it, realizing that my vulnerability is my strength. That's what the other people do with it. That's kind of like, well, that's kind of on them. If they chose to be shitty and use me or abuse me, that's not my fault. It's not a moral fail or character failing on my part. I was vulnerable and trusting. They were the assholes. So, anywho, I'll also try to remember to link that video below. So this is. I'm trying to think how to preface this. So, I have a very strong personality, or so I've been told. And some of the stuff I am working on in therapy as well to kind of bridge the gaps in like some emotional regulation and, dealing with, PTSD, trauma, stuff like that, and how I relate things and how I maneuver through life and what I'm struggling on. And this is one area where this has been a consistent issue in my entire whole ass life. I have a really hard time relating to other women. And often I always joke that I don't girl well. I mean, I look cute, but like, yeah, the worst possible thing you could ever make me do is like go to a baby shower or a bridal shower. I'd much rather be at the bachelor party. Anyways, I've just, that's how I am. I have a very odd personality, but I do get into this a little bit more because I really want to sort of preface the messages, because out of context it's really not going to make a whole lot of sense. And a lot of the reason I make these videos and share things that are very private and personal to me is because a lot of times I feel like an alien weirdo alone kind of flitting through the universe. And when someone's like, oh my God, I feel that way too, I'm like, yay, I'm not alone. I'm not some crazy alien. So I share this, like, take what I always say, take what you like and leave the rest, whatever applies to you. And if you find like, oh wow, this really resonates with me, great. That's what I want. If only this reaches one person and they're like, oh, I can relate to this, and I too feel like an alien weirdo. Hello, welcome aboard. So where I struggle is, and I decided to meditate on this with Lilith in ascension mode, is how I struggle to relate to other women. And I often find myself with a higher than average chance of, if I open my mouth to say something, I'm probably offending someone. I often joke that I don't girl well. And, but in actuality, Lilith helped me understand myself and my upbringing better. And some of that does impact. I just never thought about it in that context before. So I realize that I often do not fit in because in around in a very palpable way, I was raised in a very matriarchal family. Eastern European family structures, at least the old world Eastern European family. I don't know what it's like in 2024 in Eastern Europe, but I know that like my recent living ancestors that came over or were first generation. It's a very matriarchal family structure. You know, now I often joke that we are a family of loud women and the quiet men they marry. Now, while historically the women weren't like the breadwinners, as it were, they were the centrifugal force of the family structure and wore the proverbial pants. I'm pretty sure that my Grammy wore the pants for the whole damn universe. You just weren't aware of it. That's how it goes. But that's what I grew up in, a very different way. And I know from looking at other, like when I was married, like my ex-husband's family was very patriarchal in that sense. And I always was like, this is weird. Like I had a hard time relating to it, and like my dad does all the cooking. His father couldn't be arsed to finish. He was reading the paper until summoned for dinner, that kind of thing. It was just very different for me. My brother does all the cooking too. So I like cooking. I don't know. If I have 20 people to cook for, great. If I'm cooking for myself, screw me, I can just eat rocks. So for a lot of women, though, the dream of a matriarchy is a wild unknown. But to quote Bell Hooks, and if you know who Bell Hooks is and you're watching this channel, we're cool. We can hang. Patriarchy has no gender. And patriarchy does not solely equal men. So, it's a hierarchical structure in which a lot of people function, navigate. Obviously, I have to function and navigate in a patriarchal society, regardless of whether or not I was raised in a more matriarchal family structure. So, obviously, I'm not excluded from that. I just navigate them differently based upon my upbringing and experiences. Now, as I've been looking at this is sort of the subtext for what I was working with Lilith on, so you kind of understand the depth and how I was working on this. But historically, a lot of women find me intimidating, and that goes all the way back to like high school. I never really understood why per se, and it used to upset me mostly because my intelligence, strength, and resilience were threats to others. And I spent a lot of time getting punched down and bullied by other women. I still do. It's unfortunate, but it's not my cross to bear anymore. Lilith helped me to understand this. And this also kind of plays a little bit into some of what I go over in the Lucifer messages on being vulnerable video. So as I go to say, this is not my cross to bear. It's their unhealed trauma, shadows, internalized misogyny, and sometimes misandry, and other things that are literally no concern to me. Projections are just that. We often carry things that people project on us, and then we believe them to be true. I don't think I'm an intimidating person. I'm loud. I will tell you exactly what I'm thinking because that's how I was raised. It was like, I remember when I first started dyeing my hair crazy colors back in the old days in 1992. My grandmother would sit down with me. She's like, well, your grandfather and I were talking, and we think you should dye your hair back to its natural color. The fuck Pop thinks it gives a crap what color my hair is. It was only like burgundy at the time, but it was just funny. She would always sit down like, well, your grandfather and I were talking, and and stuff like that. It was just a very quiet, World War II veteran, Anyways, so the other part of this is that I've always had very close male friends for the past 35 years. I don't know, like I just have a lot of boy besties. I always have. I always will probably, But I've always noticed that my lady friends tend to be a collective of women who don't get along with other women either. But we get along with each other and we're cool. So the obvious thing that people would point to in a Sigmund Freud kind of way is, tell me about your mother. I'm like, well, let me tell you about my mom. She's freaking awesome. She's my biggest cheerleader fan. Like, she, whatever I post on social media, I get a heart emoji. I'm like, doom powder, really, mom? Satan's butt crack spray. I get little heart emojis from my mom. She comes over and helps me with things. The only thing she finds disturbing is how many pillows I own. Have we, gestures around it, everything else, but I own too many pillows. Anywho, but no, my mom's awesome. And, my family is very ride or die. So that's kind of how I am. And, however, growing up, I watched a lot of my friends struggle with their relationships with their own mothers and their sisters as well. And it was really kind of unrelatable to me because I also always had an awesome relationship with my mom. Like, I couldn't even tell you I probably haven't had a fight with my mom at this point in decades. And I'm not like exaggerating either. We just don't fight. We've always got along that way. My dad and I carpet each other, but we have very similar personalities. So that's just kind of it. But yeah, my mom and I can't even tell you the last time I had a fight with her about anything. But that's kind of the TLDR broad stroke version of where I was kind of going into this. And there was sort of something that precipitated. That was the precursor to me kind of exploring this. Like, why is this? What is this issue I'm having? Why I don't understand it. And, I feel alone and alien a lot of the time. And if this message helps one person to not feel that way too, or to realize you're not alone and an alien weirdo as well, then it's worth sharing. So I am going to say this. A quick note before I get into Lilith's messages. Lilith is very direct to work with and in her communications. She does not mince her words, nor does she sugarcoat them in any way. If you're looking for some fluffy, enlightening messages, Lilith is probably not for you. If you appreciate brutal honesty, direct dialogue, clarity, and seeing the truth in any situation, then you know what you're in store for. I will make some notes at the end of the video for clarification because the spirit world often speaks metaphorically, not literally. And I feel like I have to emphasize that a lot. And this message could also contextually apply to other situations as well. But this is what she started out for me. And I do have several talking points at the end because there are some things in here that were even challenging for me to hear and contemplate. So buckle up, Buttercup. We're in for a ride. So this was Lilith's message to me. I came to her like, okay, I want to understand why I have so much trouble getting along with other women, or why they find me intimidating, why I'm always like upsetting people and offending them just by existing and being me. So this is what she starts with saying. You are not one of them. Ants and amoebas. Don't let them suck you into their primordial ooze. You are Lilin, a different breed entirely. They are the oppressors playing the oppressed. You do not need division and the lines of demarcation. The Lilin have no gender division and are of all genders. That is why you dance about the spectrum, because you see it fully and choreograph with careful balance navigation systems that do not require gender division. There is no patriarchy, matriarchy, or hierarchy of Lilin. It's a collective dance for those who join by bloodline or by choice and dedication. Do not concern yourself with the ants and amoebas. They are not significant to the story nor plotline, though they will take from you to try to stand on your neck to see the sun for the very first time. Lilin walk alone to find their own blood soul siblings. Find us on the distant shores of the abyss, survivors, never victims, healing towards the within. The unhealed are dangerous to themselves and others. That is their responsibility, not yours. Moving forward to mend wounds with the fabric of space and time, the blood tomorrow flows. Lilin find kinship and know their own. Marked with the love of Mother Lilith and Father Lucifer. Many invoke the feminism of Lilith, but are not of our kindred. I am not your feminist icon. I will liberate you in a trial by blood fire, and unless you are ready to navigate the gauntlet in all aspects of liberation, you will never truly rise. Lilin care not for iconic attributes. We are iconoclasts, the first, the last, the all and always. We were never understood. We were feared but fearless. We are as we always will be. Lilin as past demonic offspring, Lilin as current, and those devotees kin brethren. There are those of Eve and those of Lilith. We are not the same. Different, yes, but cut from an entirely different cloth. Those of Eve fear that which is different and try to stamp it out and destroy it. They envy the Lilithian kinfolk, but are not of them by nature. They can change and evolve to become of Lilith. Those of Lilith are that which is different and survive the sacred blood flame. To claim Lilith and to be of Lilith, one must shed being of Eve. The division of primordial mothers, archetypes in which you understand yourself and one another, symbolic of creation of Eve as a thought form. Of power, you needn't worry much of those of the rib bone. Bones, flesh, sand, blood. We crawled up from the earth to give birth to ourselves. Liberation comes from within. You have the will and fight. Those that align in slave masters' ideology will enslave themselves as their own wardens and executioners, never realizing that they are sowing the seeds of their own oppression. Ants and amoebas serve their purpose, but are not in pursuit of liberation. Conformity rejects liberation. Life begets life, and forgiveness is never obligatory. Those that would sew their own lips shut to speak the loudest in the rooms, echoing forth the energy of the universe shitting itself into oblivion. Being selfless is noble act, but being selfish is self-preservation and self-liberation. The balance between will save us all. So that was a lot. I've been actually ruminating on this for a couple weeks now at this point, and probably will be for some time in the future, because that was a lot. So now I want to go into some of the clarifications and kind of where I came through this and out the other side, because a lot of it was very pointed. Some of it was a little like, wait, what? And very challenging. But, you know, if you're not being challenged by the spirits you work with, you're probably at some point just working with like thought forms and egregores and tulpas and things like that, like ego projection. Because if they aren't like challenging you in that way to see yourself, or to see, if they aren't challenging yourself or to see things differently, or to really do that deep shadow work to figure out why. Anyways, so like I said, Lilith is not subtle, and she will challenge you, and you will run the gauntlet to cut out the other side. And when you do, like, I've been working with her for 4 years now, and this even was like a lot for me. So actually almost 5 years. So I just want to go into some of the clarifications of things. So when she is saying the couple parts where she said, well, they're ants and amoebas, she's not literally saying other women are ants and amoebas. It's a comparative metaphor that implies a few things. Some are at the beginning of their journey. Don't let the petty small stuff get you down. When they look at you as intimidating, it's because they do not have the proper context to understand. So it's spirits speak in ways like I would describe people as ants and amoebas. You know, it's a little, if you're taking it in a literal sense, it is very looking down your nose that someone is less than, and that's not necessarily but we're all at different stages in our spiritual journey. Like, I think of where I started out 30 some years ago, 35 years ago, whatever it was, or even 5 years ago. I mean, because there were chunks of time where I wasn't practicing at all, you know? So we all kind of come to things in different stages, and we have to start somewhere. No one starts out and goes, well, I know everything I've known. I've experienced everything I've got to experience. I am a god, and bow down before me, because that's how cults form. If you can't question yourself, and if you can't look back and be like, wow, I was, woof. Anyways, so the next part is when she's talking about the Lilin. It basically more or less means a child of Lilith. This can be in a theological or historical context as the mother of demons, and that her offspring sometimes referred to as Lilin, Lilitu. There's a lot of, they have variations of meanings depending on the source. In this context, she implies that we are Lilin and that we are devotees of Lilith, not that we're literally, her demonic offspring in, that context. But, we become her, albeit surrogate children. Just because one works with Lilith doesn't make you Lilin, as that comes through the liberation of the self. So the next part is where I struggled a bit, but like I was able to kind of come through the other side, and I saw, I know exactly what she meant. Because at first I was like, when she's talking about the unhealed, I was like, this kind of feels a little bit like victim blaming, shaming, but that's not what Lilith was saying. One of the things I came to realize in the past, recently, maybe within the past month, is that all of my PTSD, or the vast majority of my PTSD, came from other people's unresolved trauma that was never properly healed. The expression, hurt people hurt people. So, and I'm sure I'm not alone and passing along, I'm like, here, have some trauma. I don't want to go into the specifics of it, but, I understand that, like, okay, I'm fine speaking of this because my abuser is long dead. He was twice my age at the time. He was a Vietnam vet. His trauma was war trauma that translated him to being an abusive piece of crap. So, that was his trauma that caused all of the majority of my big T trauma. There are things that happen that, someone dies in a car accident. Well, that it can cause trauma, but it's not, that's different. That stuff is in a different category. I'm talking about the people who had unhealed trauma that they were just that hurt people. It is, sadly, it is what it is, and it's not to be dismissive of it, but I'll give you an example. So one of my exes was at the beginning of their healing journey from, I don't know what, something in the relational sexual trauma sphere, never told me what. So I supported their journey, was very understanding, willing to be like, yeah, we're on a healing journey together. And because I was well into my own. However, what happened here was this person decided to push me off the cliff in order to save themselves after months of projection and transference, and that they were projecting the role of their abuser on me. So I was feeling like an icky, I don't even know what. I'm like some kind of, but I was having all of that. I'm like, this isn't me. But that person could not see through and past the abuse and was seeing the abuser in everyone. And therefore I too was the abuser. So that was some fucked up shit to deal with. But both of those actions sent me spiraling and were detrimental to my own healing journey and set me back in the process. So when she's saying, be careful of the unhealed, that is what she is warning of. It's not to say, oh, steer clear of anyone with unhealed trauma. No, but not everyone handles it well. I mean, I know I haven't handled it well at times. But I've also can say, like, while XYZ thing you're doing is triggering of this thing, I know that you are not this person. I know you are not an abuser, or you're not XYZ, whatever in that situation. But this one thing just mirrors that. But I'm not projecting the abuse on them. I'm just saying, hey, maybe could you not do this? Or I need this particular thing. But I've always been working on myself. So I've been able to kind of delineate that, because I was just talking to my therapist about, like, I don't look around and see the abuse and abusers and everything. And I think that is a testament to how much I have healed. And believe me, it is not easy work. I've been doing this for decades. Um, but it shows, it is a testimony to how much I have healed, because I don't look at everyone like they're an abuser. I don't look at everyone like they're going to hurt me. And I've come to realize that, like in the Lucifer video about my vulnerabilities, I'm like, those are my strengths and a testament of my resilience. If you're gonna like take advantage of me and abuse me, that's on you. It's not my fault. So, anyways, moving along here is that when she's talking about the unhealed, it's a warning to not let others interfere with your own healing journey when their wounds are still open and they're emotionally hemorrhaging everywhere. I realize how much I've healed. And while I have a metric on a PTSD, I don't see it in everything. And that's what I was saying. All narratives don't immediately point towards abuse or addiction or anything in that sense. So that for me is really freaking remarkable to have made it through the journey to get to that point. And I still have my shit. That's still part of my story. And, I hate when people are dismissive towards it because I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, I healed. So I should just, keep wallowing. Like, I'm not being dismissive of it, but it's also like, if you see everything as abuse and you see abuse and everything, then all you're ever going to see is abuse. Every narrative, the main story is going to be abuse. And I don't see it that way anymore, but it doesn't mean I'm being dismissive. It just means I've healed and I'm healing, and I hate when people have to punch down and be like, no, you're not healing. You're dismissive. You're an abuse enabler. So, anyways, boundaries are key, and knowing oneself. Personally, like I say this, I'll never date another alcoholic addict, even if they're in recovery. There's just too much damage from the past. It's my boundary, it's my safety, and my self-preservation. I I can't do it anymore there's just too much baggage there. But that's a boundary I'm willing to that I can make. I still drink. I don't drink a lot, but I can be around people that are drinking. I just can't be in that space anymore. Um so all right. So anyways, the next part was the Lilith as feminist icon. So like there's a lot she gets attached in a egregoric sense to feminism as a feminist icon. Perhaps that's more of a projection than a true mark of a Lilithian soul. As she stated, there's no hierarchy, matriarchy, or patriarchy of the Lilin. It's an order of being beyond the need for such things. Human delineate structures of gender division, etc. Lilith doesn't. So, and she will work with everyone. I mean, she will test you and put you we will run through the gauntlet. But I just found that to be a really interesting statement, because I remember it goes back when I had when I was doing the demon boxes or whatever, and I had like the Lilith kit with all the stuff in it. And I think it was the way it was some of the description was written of Lilith had her as like a feminist icon, and someone kind of took issue with that. And I was just kind of whatever. But like I kind of get it now, because it's beyond that. Feminism is a human thing. Spirit world don't give a shit about that kind of stuff. So, I mean, there are spirits that that might be a little bit more of the, say, divine feminine or divine masculine. That is, but some of that also is our projection on them. Because let's face it, like human ego I mean, it happens to all of us when we're working with spirit. If someone looks at this 100 years from now, they're gonna be like, well, Lilith isn't a feminine. Well, that's just that's my experience with Lilith. But I mean, she is a fierce, powerful goddess form, but I think it's starting to look beyond that in a way. Yeah, that's one I kind of have to think about a little bit more, to be honest. Um, and the in the of Eve and of Lilith part, she's speaking of herself contextually as an archetype of the primordial mother, same as Eve. So they kind of bounce a little bit through, because a lot of this does come down to archetypal structures and how we view things. And human beings tend to be very hierarchical, which I've come to realize is not something that neurodivergents like, yeah, we recognize hierarchy, but like, I don't care. It really does. That's not something that really kind of like I get it, but also, eh. So that's just kind of a little bit there. The last part, the bones, flesh, sand, blood, that was right at the ending. This was something that she said to me one of the first times I worked with her. I noted my grandma's about 4.5 years ago. It was in the line that led up to we gave birth to ourselves. And this kind of going back to one of the first times I worked with her, is this where she first started talking. I've mentioned kind of in the story of Imam Ayel, where she kind of, I'll link the videos to that below, because that's a whole other story. I don't even know where to end up in, where that gets in there contextually. But this overall was a really interesting, challenging, because I mean, you should be challenged by the work you're doing, because otherwise it's, I mean, do I want Lilith to be like, oh, you're a fluffy little bunny and everything will be okay? No, I don't need that. I need what Lilith is saying. I need the things Lucifer said. That's what's helping me the most on my spiritual journey, on my healing journey, on my self work, and my shadow work. And you know what? Yeah. One of my friends, she passed away 7 years ago, I believe. One of the last times I got to see her, I was going, thanks, Lilith, I get it now. Time of year, it's almost Samhain, so the veil is thin. I just got that. I just hear my friend in the head. She's like, you know what? If they don't like you, fuck them. You're awesome. You know it. She was very matter of fact like that. But the funny part about it is, and what I'm laughing about is what she was responding at the time. I was actually running a feminist group, and it was a fucking nightmare. And literally dealing with all of this and then some. And it was just, it was around right before my marriage fell apart, all of that. And she's like, I was just constantly dealing with, oh, who have I offended today? Where have I stepped in shit this minute? And it was just this constant, like, being beaten down, like, okay, you're doing it wrong. All right, well, okay, well, can you help? No, that's emotional labor. It's like, okay, so you're just gonna all sit here punching down that I'm doing it wrong. But no one wants to help. No one wants to take. I'm like, please I'm like, Jesus, take the wheel. Anyone, seriously. But I was going through all of that, and just kind of stuck in it. I eventually, kind of, actually shortly thereafter, I kind of was like, I'm done with this. Fuck all y'all. So, but I always think that's fine. That's how spirit works sometimes for me. It's like, what was the final piece of the connection? You know what? If they don't like you, fuck them. And that was Valerie. I miss her dearly. It's, yeah. If you don't like me, I don't care. A lot of, I know that maybe sounds glib, but there's something liberating in it. And it's like, we take things so personally. Other people's projections on us sometimes define who we are. Like, I'm learning to drop all the qualifiers I put on things of, well, I know I'm crazy. I know I sound like a crazy person, or, all these things where I'm putting all these qualifiers on them that have nothing to do with what I think of myself or what I think of the situation. It's other people's bullshit that define me. Okay, so whatever. I'm intimidating. That sounds like a you problem, not a me problem, because I'm freaking awesome. You know? I'm pretty easy peasy. I'm loud. I'm intelligent. Unless there's math or sports involved. Um, I have some of that neurodivergent stuff in there. Like, I don't have a lot of fluff conversations. It's just not, there's only so much I can talk about shoes. Like, I have shoes. Yay. Um, like there's some stuff I just don't really talk about. All right. Or I'm very limited capacity. I'm like, yes, I like Too Faced and Urban Decay's makeup. Okay, and moving on from there. Let's talk about French deconstructionist theory. But yeah, I tend to have more, though that's where I get excited and talking to people is really learning stuff, because I just crave like understanding and knowledge. I love the knowledge. Anyways, I've been going on for quite some time. I hope you found this enlightening in some way. Like I said, take what you like and leave the rest. Hopefully someone, if you're out there and watch this and we're like, holy crap, I'm not an alien weirdo and alone on an island. Welcome aboard. Anyways, so yeah, don't forget to click like and subscribe. Be sure to follow us on social media, sign up for our e-newsletter so you know what's going on, because algorithms suck. And if you like us and you really like this, we do have channel memberships. I kind of suck at that, but anyways, there I did it. I'm putting in qualifiers for things. I'm trying to learn not to. Anyways, I love you all. Thank you for watching. Good night.